This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome. My name is Jared Farrell and I am the CEO of Global Reviews. This morning, we will be sharing insights on what leading brands are prioritizing to drive a better self-service experience globally. Thank you for joining us this morning. Global Reviews celebrates its 20th birthday this year, and over those 20 years, we have been assisting our clients optimize their digital performance in both the acquisition and retention space. We provide an evidence-led, competitive view of our clients' digital performance globally and how to improve it. Our key focus is to deliver insights on the key elements our clients don't know about their digital performance. Elements like why in-market prospects are visiting their site, considering them, but ultimately choosing a competitor, or what prioritized optimization roadmaps will deliver the greatest return on investment by target group. We provide optimization programs which are underpinned by sprint development and iterative testing, which means that we work with them to test, then they iterate, and then we test again. We specialize in key industry verticals and are currently present in North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Of the key industry verticals that we specialize in, today we will specifically be drawing insights from banking and superannuation. And the solution we will be drawing our insights from is called Compass. Compass identifies the capability gaps which drive digital maturity and better engagement. Compass in Banking and Super recently measured the performance of 39 brands. We will be sharing insights from just some of these brands today, but hold a considerable amount of data and insight on all of these brands. So for each brand, we gain access to the authenticated member environment, and that's the first step in our research methodology for this solution. Secondly, we complete an audit of up to 400 criteria or self-service features that exist in these environments. We now know what features exist and what doesn't exist, and we conduct now a survey of 1,000 customers within the relevant industry being measured. Through this survey, we can establish the importance and desirability of each of the features that we have audited in step 1 of the methodology. So now we know what features are provided and the value of those features provided, which allows us to get an understanding of the performance of the digital maturity on the basis of what consumers say that they want. So let's start by looking at 4 key insights that we're going to talk through. The first one is how to diagnose the current digital maturity performance. In banking and super, it is interesting to note that the level of engagement and familiarity that customers of these industries have with their current provider. In banking, we can see that the majority of those surveyed believe that their primary bank provides an online service which meets their needs. This came in at a mean score of 7.68 on a 10-point scale, in comparison to superannuation, which comes in at 7.44 for those who believe that their primary fund provides digital services which meet their needs. When we look at familiarity, we can see that banking is much higher than superannuation when it comes to the level of familiarity that customers have with their primary bank at 7.23 on a 10-point scale in comparison to superannuation, which is 6.21. The difference here between banking and superannuation is alarming. However, it is not unsurprising due to the lower level of engagement which exists within the superannuation industry as a whole. It does indicate, however, the challenge that is faced by the superannuation industry in trying to drive familiarity, which ultimately will help people to understand the features which are available to them from their fund. So if we take this one step further and now we start to dig into the specific brands themselves, let's look at 4 brands from banking. So we have ANZ, NAB, Westpac, and Commonwealth Bank. We can see on the two different axes, on the left axis, or the vertical axis, the familiarity of online digital features provided, and on the horizontal axis, the degree to which customers feel that the services provided meet their needs. So we can see that ANZ is behind NAB, Westpac, and Commonwealth Bank when it comes to the level of digital services provided meeting their needs. However, they are at a comparative level, really, when talking about the proportion or the familiarity with the digital features provided. If we introduce the mean scores that are across all banks, we can see that ANZ is falling behind the mean for all customers in terms of the degree to which they believe that the digital features meet their needs. So this tells us that ANZ, their customers believe that they are familiar with the features which ANZ are providing, and they are saying that ANZ are behind the general average in terms of the degree to which these features meet their needs. So we want to understand more about what is it that the ANZ customer wants and what is it that they feel that is not being delivered that meets their needs. So now we want to dig into, okay, well, what are the features that are most important to ANZ customers in comparison to another bank? In this instance, we're comparing to CBA. In the survey that we discussed earlier on, we measure a large number of features on the basis of importance and desirability on a 10-point scale. When we look at a rank order performance of the features in terms of their importance and desirability to ANZ customers or CBA customers and look specifically at the top 10, we can see that many of them are similar. However, there are some key features which come out which are different or are unique to those particular customers. So for ANZ, for example, we can see at number 7, the ability to log in using a PIN on the mobile app. At number 9, the ability to manage advance payments, e.g. schedule, modify or cancel an advance payment. Or 10, the ability to set up, modify and cancel reoccurrent payments, are 3 features which ANZ customers rate in their top 10 that do not appear in the top 10 for CBA customers. For CBA customers, conversely, we can see the ability to lock a credit card from my current account at rank 7th, and the ability to set up or change a card PIN from my account area at rank 9, and the ability to query or dispute a transaction through my account area at rank 10. For both of these sets of audiences, the ability to BPay from an account is in first place or second place, and the ability to save or add biller information to an account is also incredibly important. At the time when this research was completed in Q4 2019, ANZ did not have some of the features that we mention here. So quick tasks in terms of being able to BPay from an account being available on the dashboard when you log into the desktop environment, or when we look at the ability to set up or change a card PIN from my account area, some of these elements not being available within the ANZ app. The reason why we want to look at audiences in this way is because it's really about understanding expectation, and that is really what drives the concept of meeting needs. So one thing is it's about marketing and communications. Are they familiar with the features that are actually in existence within the member environment? And then the second one is, do the actual features actually exist, and specifically the features that are important to this audience? So should ANZ want to attract CBA customers, what are the type of features that they need to have in their environment? And then also, if they want to drive greater frequency of engagement with their own customer base, what are the types of features that they should be shouting about from a marketing point of view to attract people to come in? So when we look at the pages that ANZ use on their website to display the benefits which are available in the member environment, we can see that some of the key elements that were raised on the previous slide are not presented as key benefits which exist. We can also see differences between ANZ and CBA in terms of how they actually present the different types of features that are available, or even the ways in which these features can be used. So for example, ANZ really focus on the features of the site and what can be done, whereas CBA talk more about an action orientation rather than object orientation benefit. So they talk about freedom, choice, and control, and don't get into the specific actual individual action orientated features. On the right-hand side, the stacked vertical bar chart shows us the proportion of features which are provided by these two different banks as audited by us. And so without including anything with regards to importance or desirability of individual features and just looking at the number of features which are provided, we can see that CBA are providing 74% of the 433 features that we measured, in comparison to ANZ, who provide 58%. So at a base level, when we don't introduce any weighted metric in terms of importance and desirability, we can already see that CBA are ahead. But what is important to know is that different features have different levels of desirability and importance for customers. And understanding what features people want more, that they find more important or more desirable, is key when it comes to prioritizing for the audiences that we are looking to build for. On screen in front of us, we can see a scatter chart of a number of the features that we measure within the member environment, where we are looking at them on the basis of desirability and importance to the ANZ customer. So up in the top right-hand corner, we can see highly desirable features that are also highly important. The ability to see all accounts with balances at one place in my account area is a key element that they want and they expect. On the bottom right-hand corner, we can see those features that are more desirable, but maybe not as important. And so these may be ones which would be more attractive from a marketing point of view, and rather than a hygiene factor and expectation that it should exist within the environment. On the bottom left-hand corner, we can see low desirability and low importance. And so these are the features that for this particular audience are not as attractive and they maybe don't seek out. What is interesting is that all of these features have actually been provided already by banks that in the marketplace. So on the left-hand side, we can see voice banking with Siri, which is offered by many banks. And this particular example is from Up. We can also see the other low desirability and low importance feature, camera pay, and the ability to pay someone through a camera code. This example comes from CBA. In the very, very bottom left-hand corner, we haven't highlighted it, but the least desirable and least important feature here is being able to pay somebody through social media. And then we have an example from Monzo, which talks about the ability to open a saving or transaction account online. We've seen a number of banks who are providing this service, like KBC, and this is the Monzo example. And up in the top right-hand corner is the ability to customize the app opening page before you actually even log in from Westpac to be able to see balances in various different types of accounts. And ultimately, it's tailoring and customization and personalization before you even get into the actual app itself. And we're seeing increasingly more and more this happening both in banking and superannuation, and providing key quick information before you log in. So what we can see then is, from an ANZ customer point of view, the types of features that they desire most and find most important may be different to other banks. But if we look at a number of features and rank them in order of importance from top to bottom that ANZ don't provide, and look at the competitive set and what others do provide, then we can see the areas of opportunity for ANZ when it comes to optimization and prioritization. So for example, are users able to set their debit card PIN on their desktop online banking portal? Are they able to change the debit card PIN? Can you view daily international pay limits? Can you change daily international payments on the app? If e-bill or photo bill is offered, are customers able to choose to be reminded when the bill is due? Are users able to set the level of authentication required in order to log into an account area? So across all of these different features, we can see which of the banks on screen actually offer this feature and through which channel, whether it be desktop or native app. And this gives us a clear indication of where in the competitive landscape brands are offering a level of digital service, self-service, that potentially our brand, in this instance ANZ, is not. And therefore, from a prioritization point of view, what should we be thinking of? When we look at all of the different features that we audit, and then we attribute an importance and desirability quotient or index to those features, we can start understanding, okay, what are the proportion of features or number of features which are provided, and what is the value to the customer of that feature that is being provided. And so really it gives us a benchmark view of proportion of features provided against the average feature value. So what that means is that the number of features that are provided and the decisions that have been made about those features that are provided, are they more valuable or least valuable than competitive set? So for example, we can see that Westpac are providing a smaller number of features than CBA and NAB, but the decisions that they have made around the features that they are providing is greater in the sense of the value to the customer. ANZ are providing a fewer number of features, and the value of the features that they're providing is less than the value of the features that Westpac is providing. On the bottom left-hand corner, where we see Up and Monzo, essentially the reasons why they are down in the bottom left-hand corner is because these brands focus on very specific areas in terms of the products, services, and solutions that they provide. They may be app only and do not provide a desktop solution like N26. And so what that means is that the feature universe that they're offering is going to be a lot smaller because they're focusing on fewer services. And therefore, if we look at an overall benchmark level, when we compare them to those who have a much richer digital self-service environment, they are going to score less. However, if we wanted to look at this chart on an app-only basis, or we wanted to look at this chart on the basis of those who are maybe younger, the feature values will change, the number of features which are being measured will change, and this view will change. So a key element in terms of understanding how to prioritize the digital features and what's the best way to do it, it's really about A, understanding your target audience and knowing who you are designing for. And then the second one really is having an evidence-led approach in terms of understanding what are our competitors doing, what should we provide at a hygiene level just to ensure that we are matching what the competition is at a hygiene level in terms of features importance, and then where are the opportunities, dependent on the target that we want to chase, and whether it is the self-service engagement of our current customers and driving the frequency higher, or trying to attract other customers from other banks using a marketing strategy and looking at particular types of digital experiences. And so within that concept of knowing who to design for, it's interesting to look at, if we take all of the features that are measured in the survey and we look at, a score which is on a 10-point scale, the importance of that feature, and on a 10-point scale, the desirability of that feature, and we can multiply those scores together and develop a mean, and we look at the distribution of those means within specific cohorts, we can see that early adopters are the ones who have the greatest expectation in terms of the features which are going to be provided to them within the member environment. And we know that because the average mean of both desirability and importance is greater than the other audiences within the diffusion of innovation model. So early adopters or the laggards or the late majority. If we look at age groups, we can also see that the story is different. So 25 to 29 versus 18 to 24. And the key reason we would be interested in something like this is because should we as a brand decide to start innovating for early adopters, then we know when we get on that train to innovate for early adopters, the expectation levels are going to be higher. Therefore, we continue to meet their expectations, which means we must continue to innovate. It means that we must continue to be on the edge and always pushing innovation in terms of being cutting edge. The early majority, conversely, are not as demanding when it comes to expectations, and therefore we may prefer to optimize and innovate for the early majority, because with their expectation levels not as high, they're a less demanding target audience, but yet above average in terms of the importance and the quality of the digital experience, and they are easier to please. So understanding your target audience is critical. So that was how to diagnose the current digital maturity performance. And for us, it's really about being evidence-led. And we have many scenarios where we work with clients where a lot of the decisions that are being made in terms of prioritizing the roadmap are being based on conversations and opinions that are happening in meetings, or based on calls that are coming through to the call center and those who are shouting the loudest, or it may be on the basis of senior management or a CEO seeing an advert of a competitor offering and saying, well, why don't we offer that? And so this approach and what we're talking about in terms of how to diagnose is really about the idea of being proactive and having a program based on what people want, rather than being reactive and on the base of information that is coming in. So the second thing we want to talk about then is developing an evidence-led approach to prioritization. So the chart we looked at earlier, when we looked at AMP, NAB, Westpac, and CBA, and we looked at how, ANZ, and we looked at how ANZ was performing and that their customers felt that they were not meeting their needs as much as, say, CBA customers were. We'd like to look at the same chart now, but this time focusing on superannuation and AMP and HESTA. So we can see that for AMP, the story is similar in the sense that their members are less likely to state on a 10-point scale that the online and digital services provided meet their needs. And HESTA are ahead of AMP, but in general, both customer sets or both member sets have similar levels of familiarity with the level of digital services which are provided. So we'd like to dig into this to understand, is the challenge that it's actually the innovation of the digital services which are provided, or is it around familiarity in marketing, so that we actually need to get the messages out to our member base that we actually do provide these features, but maybe you don't know that we provide these features, bearing in mind that the familiarity in general in superannuation is much lower than it is in banking. If we introduce the means for both familiarity and meet my needs, we can see that AMP is behind the mean for meet my needs, whereas HESTA is slightly ahead of meet my needs. So this really brings it even further forward of the need and the urgency for AMP to be able to unlock and understand this particular metric. If we go back into this large dashboard view that we showed earlier on, and we have a number of different super brands in here, there are some that we have left out as well. We can see though that HESTA and AMP, when it comes to the proportion of features which are provided, are neck and neck, and the average feature value of the features that are provided, they're neck and neck. So our benchmark view, where we've got a weighted feature value in here, is telling us that ultimately it looks like that they are scoring in and around the same. And so the score that we saw on the previous slide, more perception-led, is telling a different story. And so now we need to dig in a little bit further to try and understand, well, what do AMP need to do? How do they need to prioritize? And what is the process that they should take from a prioritization point of view? Within this solution, we look at the journey that a member would take, or a customer, as they are looking to self-serve. So we have a number of different subcategories. If you recall, in banking, we have 433 features that we audit. And so unless those features are put into buckets, it becomes quite difficult to contextualize where within the journey this feature actually sits and what is it that we are trying to service, essentially. So for a good example is help and support. So what features within help and support would help drive people to self-serve greater? Or in account management, changing personal details, things like that. So our feature set is split up over a number of different subcategories. The black bar tells us the proportion of features that this brand already holds, and the green bar tells us where the features are not offered. And so quickly we can understand that two key subcategories in this particular benchmark, which is for superannuation, is product information and security. And for this brand that we're looking at, AMP, we can see that these are key areas of focus for them. Now, we want to dig a little bit deeper into product information. What's going on in product information? What is it that AMP are not providing? And is it that AMP are not providing the same features that HESTA are not providing? Because we saw on a previous slide that they are neck and neck when it comes to the proportion of features which are offered and the average value of those features. But when we dig into that subcategory, product information, we can actually see that HESTA is the leader in this subcategory of all of the brands that are on the screen, whereas AMP is really in joint last position here. So that tells us that while HESTA and AMP might be sharing the similar score in terms of the proportion of features which are being offered, they are actually not the same features. And so what is it that AMP can do in this really important category, which stands at 12% and is of equal importance with security as being the most important subcategories within the benchmark? We're going to focus on just three key features that AMP do not provide, that their competitors do provide. And these are ways in which we can then start to prioritize. Again, we have a feature weight here, a feature score, which comes from a desirability and importance index. So we can make decisions around one feature over another. So for example, if in our list on roadmap, we have 6 things that we want to innovate, but the one that is in second place is, does the desktop site show a breakdown of the individual companies being invested in? And in 6th place, we have, does the mobile app provide complete investment strategy information? Then maybe we should change our roadmap. Maybe we should have the one that is at 8.5% in terms of value in second place, and the one that is at 2%, the breakdown of individual companies being invested in, much further down the roadmap. And so that's the key element and idea with regards to prioritizing the roadmap. It's really important to be able to make decisions between one feature over another, because there are finite resources and bandwidth in terms of getting new feature elements into the roadmap and developing new things. So we have 3 key areas here, 3 features that we've identified that AMP don't have, that competitors do have, and we have a weighted value against them. And we can also identify what channel that they're being provided to. So we're going to dig in a little bit deeper, and we're going to look at exactly who is providing these different features. Now, the solution that we're talking about here is about digital maturity, self-service feature provision. It is not about usability. And so we can look at usability by bringing in remote moderated testing and getting people to try and find and complete various different types of tasks within the member environment, but that is ultimately not what we are trying to establish here. What we are trying to establish is, does the feature or service exist? Do people want the feature or service that already exists? And how are we doing in comparison to our competitive set? So this is an example from Care Super, who showed the breakdown of the individual companies being invested in. And now we look at Equip, and now we're talking about the mobile app providing complete investment strategy information, including benefits. And on the second screen grab on the right-hand side, we can see where Equip is telling us about the type of investment strategy being very defensive here, and the reasons why, and what your future contribution strategy is. So they allow members to see how their investment options are performing, providing the current investment strategy profile and the future evaluation of different risk levels. And then if we talk about a breakdown of the individual companies being invested in, but this time we talk about it from Grow on the left-hand side and Spaceship on the right-hand side. There are interesting things happening here from a graph visualization point of view. We have Spaceship on the right-hand side using a bubble chart where they are representing the proportion of money which is invested in each one of these different funds based on the proportional size of the bubble. On the left-hand side, we have Grow, who are using a tactical tilt solution where they can slide or bar in terms of increasing or decreasing the amount of money which is invested in particular types of sectors, and then also the brands that are within, or the companies that are within those sectors. So interesting approaches, but both leading to the same element, which is the provision of information in terms of the breakdown of the investment. And other things what Spaceship are doing is unit price, rate of return, asset allocation, transaction history, and then links to latest news. And so we're certainly seeing these brands that are potentially more investment-led from a superannuation point of view, coming in with new ideas in terms of how different types of investment strategies are being presented and how they can be interacted with and changed. So if we come back to the data in terms of who are the HESTA members in our sample and who are the AMP members in our sample, and trying to answer that question around, well, why are the AMP members behind the average and behind HESTA in terms of stating that the fund meets their needs, their digital needs? And what's interesting to note is that the AMP members are more engaged. They are more frequently coming into the member environment and using the different elements within the member environment. So that really tells us two things: that potentially the AMP member is more demanding and has a higher level of expectation than the HESTA members. And then the HESTA members and the HESTA brand really wants to move those who are on the right-hand side of this chart over to the left-hand side of this chart, because ultimately they want to increase frequency and engagement. Are they ready to do that? As people increase their frequency and engagement, their expectations will increase. And when expectation, or when their familiarity increases and expectation increases, are the features there for people to be able to self-serve? And ultimately, is it an experience that they're going to enjoy, which will draw them to come back more and even to talk about it amongst family and friends? So that was developing an evidence-led approach to prioritization. And now we'll finish off with the last two areas that we're going to discuss. So what current trends are driving new experiences for customers? One of the things which is being tracked closely by many of our banking clients is the idea of financial management. We're seeing the growth in financial management apps, and one of the things that they are interested in is how much are people adopting these different types of financial apps that are available. And this particular chart in front of us is showing us that they are not really adopting it. We've got 47% who disagree with actively using personal apps to help me manage my financial life. We have 29% neutral, and then a smaller number who agree and strongly agree. The type of apps that we're talking about here are Mint or Pocket Bank and things like that. But this isn't relevant to just banks. This is relevant to superannuation as well, because with things like calculators and being able to understand what your retirement may look like 20 years from now, there is definitely this move towards greater financial management, or in some instances, health management, essentially driving engagement and providing more than, I suppose, the standard elements that would be available within superannuation to attract people to use the services more often and to become more engaged. So looking into what is actually being done in this space is very interesting for a lot of our clients, because they're starting to understand where the opportunities from current trends in terms of feature provision and self-service provision that is being done by entrants coming into the sector who would potentially not be the incumbents, or certainly wouldn't have the legacy background in this particular industry. So this is an example from FROLLO. And so we can see examples here around the ability to set savings challenges and to set category and set a budget. Here are some examples with regards to the trending challenges, and on the bottom right hand corner here, this screen grab shows us that this person has the opportunity to take on a challenge where they're going to reduce the amount of spend that they have with Uber. We can see the number of people who have already taken on this challenge and what the actual success rate is. So 46% success and 35 people have taken it on. FROLLO allows people to set up their own challenges or to take on the challenges of others, and then uses a gamification approach in order to drive engagement and, I suppose, social currency and community to help leverage that behavior to drive people further forward. Then if we look at FROLLO and some of the things that they're doing in terms of spending alerts, so there's a lot of stuff being done in terms of tracking merchant spending. And then there's also an element around how to actually manage that merchant spending, future date, what we expect that you will be spending, and then turning it actually off within the actual app itself, which creates this single touch financial management. It's very powerful if you are able to unsubscribe from Netflix within a financial management app without needing to go to Netflix whatsoever. Pocket Bank, another example, allows us to add spending caps on each spending category. And so users have the ability to track spending in each category and receive spending limit notifications. So a key element here really is around the categorization of spend. So we're seeing more and more banks bringing out this idea of the merchant name being more clearly associated with the spend that has already occurred, but also the categorization of what that type of spend actually was. So that happens, what happens then is you can see with up here on the right hand side, dividing up spending categories so that customers can easily understand where all of the spend is coming from, and then it allows for greater financial management. Monzo have taken a social media approach to sharing spending, so shared expense payments, where essentially it's similar to the WhatsApp platform, and users can request a payment or make a payment to Monzo contacts. And then over on the right hand side, you can see you can set an overall budget to control your total spending and then add money to get started. And then CBA, to talk about one that is really a leading financial institution globally for a lot of the different types of digital services and features that they provide. And we saw that in the benchmark slide that we looked at earlier on. So the very first screen grab here on the left-hand side, this is a total net worth of a person across a number of different types of categories and solutions and products that they have with CBA. But they have also recently launched a cash flow tracker. So you can see your monthly cash flow, you can start to set up goals and then also track spending based on the classification which is coming through, which I mentioned is an awful lot more sophisticated now. And then just going specifically to Super and talking about, I suppose, something slightly different in terms of driving loyalty and engagement. And this is an example from Guild Super, where they help members to increase their super from everyday spending. So almost like the roundup type solution, which is being provided by some superannuation funds as it is already. But in this instance, you get cash rewards that are offered to your superannuation account. And it can be grocery elements, it can be favorite brands, petrol stations. So now we're going to talk about the final insight and also talk about that key element of the difficulties that many brands are facing today with the challenge around coronavirus and COVID-19, and ultimately the impact that we're seeing as well with our clients in terms of the number of calls to the call center, depleted call centers with many people out through quarantining, and a lot of, everybody working from home and the challenges and pressures that puts on the actual organization. So 3 key snippets here. Nationwide have closed down call centers and branches over weekends and evenings. JP Morgan offering call center staff $1,000 incentive to keep working, and then Barclays paying frontline staff triple overtime to ensure call centers are fully staffed. So this is a very real challenge that is happening right now. What we are seeing in many instances is that compliance and risk and legal departments are being bypassed in order to be able to bring solutions, digital solutions, to market faster, because of the amount to which the call centers are overwhelmed. And so it is really about that straight through processing, a fully automated experience. But moving into this type of scenario, those that were already digitally mature and that were already providing these types of solutions are the ones that are certainly at the beginning going to survive more easily than those who have to start to build these types of solutions and to do it quickly in order to be able to take massive pressure off the call centers. And so what we want to talk about on our final insight is really that idea of the future and how can we really leverage digital to help organizations as we move forward. So the key component, I suppose, that we would like to put forward is that innovation is a strategic concept, and it is one which happens over a long period of time. Once the target audiences have been identified and the evidence is gathered in terms of how to design, what to design for the target audiences that are important to our strategy, really it's about keeping that going and over a long period of time. Innovation in an environment like we have today is going to help, but ultimately it is more reactive than proactive. And because innovation requires an innovation culture, it requires top down in terms of understanding the need for it and how it can help the business. And so we wanted to present one example of how innovation and digital innovation, when leveraged to its maximum, can really help businesses in terms of driving through efficiency, greater experience, enhanced experience, and then ultimately improving the brand's bottom line. So this is SinoClaim, who process more than 6% of their claims automatically. They recently won an award for this solution. Essentially, it's a straight-through processing solution. Claims can be handled with or without a loss adjuster. A report is evidence-driven or event-driven, so customers report the event that happened. The member area offers mail, photos, and calendars to document the claim, contact the party. While that is happening, at the back end, details are being checked from a fraud point of view, and then key impacts are immediately played back in terms of summarized information in the member environment of, how it's going to impact your no claims bonus, potentially the cost of your policy. And then an appointment is also made with the body shop that is nearest to you should the claim be accepted. So customers can track their claim, and everything happens within the member environment. And essentially, the loss adjusters or the contact team do not need to get in touch with the person who is making the claim. So our key conclusions from our session this morning are: understanding your digital maturity first means understanding your customer. Digital self-service feature innovation is a long-term strategy and should be approached systematically, not piecemeal. Experience expectations are increasingly being set by new entrants and those moving over from other sectors. Mature digital services provide more than a novel experience. They enhance the experience for the customer while improving the bottom line. There is much that I have not talked about in this short webinar. We have a huge amount of information and detail, as I mentioned. Banking and superannuation studies are currently in field or running shortly, and we're bringing Compass, that digital maturity solution, to other industries this year, including energy, sports betting, and we're very excited about it. So please, if you have any questions, reach out and get in touch. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I hope that you found it informative and interesting. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the team and we'd be delighted to discuss any of your needs further.